40 centimeters of metal inside his leg, and a life that doesn't look as perfect as you think. When you hear the name Li Min Ho, what's the first thing that comes to mind? A global superstar. A perfect face. A dream life that millions envy. But what if I told you, behind that image, there's a story that most people never really talk about. A story that involves a life-changing accident, years of physical pain, and a kind of loneliness that success can't fix. Because sometimes, the more perfect someone looks on the outside, the more complicated their life is behind the scenes. And today we're diving into something different. Not just the fame, not just the success, but the real story of Li Min Ho. The struggles, the sacrifices, and the hidden side of a life that many people think they understand, but actually don't. So sit back, because this is a story you might see him differently after hearing. From an ordinary dream to an extraordinary life. Before the fame, before the red carpets, Li Min Ho was just a normal kid. Like many others, he had dreams, but they weren't even about acting at first. In fact, he once wanted to become a professional football player. But life doesn't always follow the plan we expect. An injury during his younger years forced him to give up that dream. And that's when things slowly started to change. A new path begins. After leaving football behind, he turned to acting. At first it wasn't easy. Small roles, minor appearances, no big recognition, just persistence. And then everything changed. The moment that made him a star, in 2009, Boys Over Flowers happened. And suddenly, Li Min Ho wasn't just an actor anymore. He became a household name, a global icon, and one of the most recognizable faces in Asia. Fans everywhere, media attention, endless opportunities. It looked like a dream come true. But behind that dream, something much darker had already happened. The accident that changed everything. Let's go back a few years. Before the fame, before the spotlight. Back to a moment that could have ended everything. A tragic car accident. In 2006, Li Min Ho was involved in a serious car accident. It wasn't just a minor incident. It was life-threatening. The crash caused severe injuries, multiple fractures, and a long period of hospitalization. In fact, one of his close friends in the car did not survive. And that alone is something that changes a person forever. 40 centimeters of metal. Here's the part that many people don't know. Due to the injuries, doctors had to insert metal rods into his leg. About 40 centimeters. Let that sink in for a second. That's not just recovery. That's a permanent reminder. A long and painful recovery. Recovery wasn't quick. It wasn't easy. It took months of treatment, physical therapy, and mental strength. Because it's not just about healing the body, it's about healing everything else that comes with it. Fear, trauma, loss. The side of fame people don't see. Now fast forward, Li Min Ho becomes a global star. But here's the thing. Success doesn't erase the past. And it doesn't automatically bring happiness. Living with pressure. Being famous sounds amazing, but it also means constant attention, constant expectations, and very little privacy. Every move is watched, every word is analyzed. And that kind of pressure, it builds up. The loneliness of being at the top, here's something many fans don't realize. Fame can be incredibly isolating. When you're at the top, it's harder to trust people, harder to have normal relationships, and harder to just be yourself. And over the years, Li Min Ho's personal life has often been described as quiet. Some say mysterious, some say lonely. Relationships under the spotlight. Of course, there have been rumors, there have been relationships, but none of them lasted long enough to define his life. And in an industry where everything is public, even love becomes complicated. Is it really a perfect life? From the outside, everything looks ideal. Money, fame, success. But when you look deeper, the story is very different. Because behind the success, there is pain from the past, pressure from the present, and uncertainty about the future. Welcome back. And now let's talk about what all of this really did to him. In part 1, we talked about the accident, the fame, and the hidden struggles behind Li Min Ho's success. But now comes the deeper question. How did all of that change him as a person? Because surviving something like that, it doesn't just leave physical scars. It changes the way you think, the way you see life, and the way you connect with people. A mindset shaped by survival. After going through a near-death experience, nothing feels the same anymore. For Li Min Ho, that accident wasn't just an event. It was a turning point. Living with awareness. People who go through something that intense often say one thing. They start to value life differently. And you can see that in him. He's often described as calm, thoughtful, and more reserved than expected. Not loud, not overly expressive, but very aware. Time becomes more important. When you've almost lost everything once, time starts to feel different. Every project, every decision, every moment. It matters more. And that's something fans have noticed over the years. He doesn't rush. He chooses carefully. His acting feels different for a reason. Now let's talk about something interesting. Have you ever watched his performances and thought, there's something deeper here? That's not accidental. Emotions that come from real experience. When an actor has lived through pain, it shows, not in an obvious way, but in small details. The way he looks at someone, the pauses in his dialogue, the quiet intensity in emotional scenes. It feels real, because it is. Why fans connect with him so strongly? It's not just about looks. Yes, he's handsome, but there are many handsome actors. What makes Li Min Ho different is the feeling he gives off. A mix of strength, vulnerability, and something unspoken. And fans feel that, even if they can't explain it. Global fame, but still something missing. Let's be honest. He has achieved almost everything. Global recognition, successful dramas, a massive fan base. But does that automatically mean happiness? The quiet life behind the spotlight. Compared to many celebrities, Li Min Ho keeps his personal life very private. You don't see constant updates. You don't see him sharing everything. And sometimes that silence says a lot. The idea of being alone, now let's be careful here. Being alone doesn't always mean being unhappy. But in his case, fans often feel like there's a certain distance, a space between him and the world. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's protection, or maybe it's just who he became after everything. Fame versus reality. This is something important to understand. From the outside, his life looks perfect, but reality is always more complex. Success comes with a cost. Behind the success, there's pressure, expectations, and the constant need to stay strong, even when things aren't easy. The things we don't see. Fans see red carpets, interviews, perfect photos, but they don't see the quiet moments, the struggles, the personal battles. And that's true for many celebrities, not just him. Why his story matters. So why are we talking about all of this? Because stories like this remind us of something important. Celebrities are still human. They go through pain, fear, loss, and growth, just like anyone else. Strength doesn't always look loud. Li Min Ho's story isn't about being perfect. It's about continuing. After everything that happened, he didn't disappear. He didn't give up. He kept going. And sometimes that's the strongest thing someone can do. So, who is Li Min Ho really? Not just the actor, not just the celebrity, but the person. He's someone who survived something life-changing, someone who built a career from the ground up, someone who carries both success and scars. And maybe that's what makes his story so powerful. Now I want to hear from you. Did you know about his accident before this? Does this change the way you see him? And most importantly, do you think fame can ever truly replace a normal life? Let me know in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. For more deep dives into the lives behind your favorite stars. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.